Hey, this is Ralph for the Prineville Chess Club. In this video, we're going to look at a game I played a couple months ago at the end of March as part of an Idaho tournament. And this was round 3. This is an exciting game for me, a really big game. And and yeah, there's no, you can see here, yeah, I'm up against, so I'm about 1200 USCF rated at the time. And my opponent, Kenneth, he's above 1500. He was in the mid 1500s, which is a considerably skilled opponent for me. I've got white in this position, and actually, I'm going to go ahead and hit the review first, and let's just have it tell me what the accuracy was. Yeah, accuracy is in my area, 83%, and yeah, just one mistake, but yeah, a few great moves and a brilliant move was in there. So that was pretty good. This is a big game for me. I'm going to jump back over to analysis, and I haven't looked at this game in a couple of months. And I do think it is valuable for all of us to kind of go back and look at those meaningful games in your experience. And they could be a game you play on chess.com, on Chess, in a tournament, at a club. However, it's good to have those games kind of recorded so you can come back and visit them and remind yourself of the things you did well, and of course to educate yourself on the things that you missed or didn't do so well on so that we can get better. I'm just going to go ahead and hit the arrow keys. I've got white. I start with e4. As white, I always start with e4. Until I feel like I've got a good handle on a bunch of other stuff, I'm probably just going to keep doing e4 openings as white. My opponent responds with a French defense. Okay. Now, normally, I think with the French, we see d5 happen. So that's kind of what I was prepared for. Oh, this is kind of amusing, I thought, at least amusing to me. After my first opening here, e4, my opponent did not play their first move for like almost 3 solid minutes, which is pretty weird to take that much time before your response, and considering e4 for white is the most popular play. So generally, if you're playing as black, you've already got an idea of how you're going to respond to e4. And yeah, so already my opponent's intimidating me a little bit. So, oh my gosh, what are they thinking about? I'm looking at my clock to make sure I hit the clock. And did he see that I made a move and stuff? But yeah, so it does this variation, Franco-Sicilian Defense. I am not very good at opening names and stuff like that. So yeah, I thought this was going to be a French. I could never have told you this is something called the Franco-Sicilian Defense. However, a Sicilian opening to e4 would be c5. That would be a Sicilian. And I've got a couple of ideas if somebody plays that. So I guess it does make sense that this is the Franco-Sicilian variation of the French defense. Okay, and I decide to push, and these are book moves, even though I don't know this opening, right? So again, we're just kind of thinking of what is a logical move. Now, obviously, with this c5 push for black, I do have several things I can do, right? I can take, I can push, or I can defend, support, things like that. The idea of taking didn't appeal to me at all because I would be giving up a central pawn. I'd be giving up central control. And I don't want to give up central control so quickly and so easily, especially in the beginning of the game. So this is a common technique that you or your opponents might play where you can attack the center with a flank pawn, with a pawn off to the side. So if there is a take, and then that allows them to bring their bishop out, boy, I've got one center pawn, they still have 2 center pawns, I helped them develop their bishop. Yeah, so taking did not seem good to me at all. Now, obviously, there are supportive moves, I thought, well, takes, but no, I just didn't like the idea. So I did decide to push. They take, I take, and now I do support. And yes, not all of our moves are going to be the best move. They're not always going to get the little star icon. That is perfectly fair. I am okay with green check marks and green thumbs ups, and even the occasional inaccuracy is okay as long as it doesn't really seem to set you back from your plan, which is to win. Okay, doing just good development moves here. Okay, my opponent does castle, and that's considered an inaccuracy. And I glanced too quickly over to the engine line. I see knight g4 would have been best for them. So yeah, so bringing their knight out to g4 and to start to put pressure on things. If they did respond with g4, I probably was just going to push away with my pawn, so I'm not necessarily thinking that would have been too awesome. But you can see from these engine lines, even black's best move, white still has an advantage, almost a 1-point advantage. So already I've got a decent enough advantage in the game. Now, it was inaccurate for me to castle at this stage of the game. Seemed pretty logical to me. If I don't castle, then I'm probably going to continue developing or attacking. And like I said, I haven't looked at this game in a long time, so I don't remember what the best move in this position is. But considering my dark squared bishop is not developed, if castling is not the appropriate thing, I would probably consider developing my bishop to f4, possibly g5, but f4 seems most likely. Develop, give some central support, which will limit or hinder, basically, this knight from coming into here. So I think bishop f4 might be a better candidate move. Or, what if I brought my queen to c2 to start right away with a battery against h7? h3 is the best move for white. Okay, queen c2 is the second best move. Bishop f4 is the third best move. So I kid you not, I wasn't looking at the engine lines when I was predicting these. What I am doing is I'm taking time. And of course, you're thinking to yourself, but Ralph, this was a long game. It was a long game, by the way. It's 90 minutes per side, tons of increment. So time pressure was never an issue for me in these longer tournament games. But taking the time to look at candidate moves and calculate is my weakness. I do not do well at that, so I do need to get better at it. Even in tournament games where I have plenty of time, I kind of look and see, oh, there's a pretty good move. Castling seems smart, seems safe, and I go to that move probably a little bit too quickly. So definitely a skill that I need to improve on for me, maybe for you too, is to take more time when time is available. Look at all of those options. Developing moves, attacking moves, forcing moves, things that force your opponent to respond. So although I don't think I would have been too quick to push h3, which basically hinders the g4 square, protects the g4 square from black. I see the value of it, but really I think I should have gone for this queen c2, start the battery. Castling is important, for sure, but my king is not at risk. I could wait and castle after they develop their rook, or after they develop a knight, something like that. But I castle. Yeah, what is this doing? What is this bishop doing here? I'm not pinning a piece. The knight is easily defended by 1, 2, 3 other pieces. So I'm not going to give up my bishop for their knight, which they can easily replace. So I can just see that that doesn't make a lot of sense now, in hindsight, of moving that bishop. Yes, developing pieces is good, but why didn't I develop here? Or, again, queen to c2. What do they say? Again, h3 is the best move for white, queen c2, now rook e1. That should have stood out to me, because I know that to be a good move. Is one of the reasons we castle when we do is so that soon after we can get our rooks lined up onto what is an open file. Open file is not blocked by any pawns. If there's one pawn, it would be called a semi-open file. And so getting my rook out to challenge this open file definitely would have been a smart thing to do. Okay, now I thought I had, this was a good move. It was a best move. But let me go back a little bit on my thought process here. I thought I had some really interesting opportunities for obviously taking, which is what I did, and that was going to require them to either take back with a queen or take back with a rook. And I just felt like I had some interesting ideas for both. Do I remember what those interesting ideas were? Maybe not quite at the moment, but something that I was eyeing was this undefended knight over here. And I thought, boy, I can take, they get a high valued piece. Now, if they brought their queen out in front, I was very likely going to bring my rook and threaten their queen. Their queen would have been forced to move. I could have done some kind of trading. And at some point, I could have moved this knight somewhere. And their knight would have been available for me. They take with the rook. Okay, finally, my brilliant move. I did take some time to study this one. Now, when they took with the rook, I hadn't already planned this attacking move. And if you ever hear of the Greek gift sacrifice, this is not the Greek gift sacrifice. However, the theme of the Greek gift sacrifice is something that I was considering. And I'm taking into consideration their knight is undefended on g4. Their king is the only defender of g7. I'm sorry, h7. So I did think there were some opportunities here. So taking with the bishop was a good way to go. And of course, my thought process at this time was, I can take, I'm going to be down the exchange, king takes back. In fact, I'm going to do that a different color. I'm going to lose a 3-point bishop. My opponent, my opponent's going to lose a 1-point pawn. They're going to be 2 points of material ahead. But as soon as they move that king out, my intention was to check with the knight. And that's why I was happy with this rook move, because the queen, their queen, is no longer guarding that g5 square. So I can check with the knight. And regardless of how they respond, I felt I had a really good opportunity to take their knight. So I would have won a pawn and a knight. They would have won a bishop. I would be up 1 point of material. And even better, my queen is in a great attacking space and their knight is more exposed. So there's some other benefits to this move. So, yep, that was the brilliant move. My opponent, he was a super friendly guy. We were chatting afterwards. He was very happy with this, or not happy, but he was very impressed with this move, and certainly gave him a moment of pause. He did take. Okay. Now, they say this is a great move. Again, don't get too proud of yourself when chess.com says you made a great move, or maybe even a brilliant move, when it's a very logical move. And the whole reason we sacrifice our bishop on that h7 square was so that we can follow it up with a check. So yes, I'm happy to get the blue exclamation mark as a great move, but that was a very logical move and kind of the next step. Okay, now, regardless of where their king moves, if their king moves back to get out of this check, then I was still going to take the knight, and then I was going to start to look at options for moving over and then potentially checking over here and potential checkmates and things like that. But when you do a Greek gift sacrifice, and although that's not exactly what this is, it's pretty close to one. Generally, the response from the opponent is to move that king forward, which is what they did. It says it's an inaccuracy, and they're actually saying king g8 is best. So normally in a Greek gift sacrifice, the opponent doesn't have this knight here. And so what I would have been able to do is bring my queen over in one move and check their king. Now, because that knight is in the way, it changes some of the procedures or the rules of the Greek gift sacrifice. So I guess I see that now that, okay, but it was still always part of my plan to take that knight. Now, I had not calculated beyond this. I felt confident that I would have an advantage, and white does have a great advantage here, 3.6 advantage. So I knew I was going to have an advantage, and I knew I was going to end up being up a pawn, and I knew their king was going to be more exposed. So I didn't feel the need to calculate 3, 4, or 5 moves out. I just felt I was confident in my 2-move calculation, and I think that is more than sufficient in many lines. Yeah, we are not IMs and GMs or any master level where we need to calculate 5, 6, 7 moves out. Occasionally, if that happens, good on you. But if you can calculate 1 or 2 moves out and you can see a light at the end of that exchange or line, I say go for it, right? Say, you know what, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I'm going to be better. I'm going to have a better position. I may or may not have more material, and my opponent is going to be more exposed and at risk. They're going to have to make harder decisions than me. That was enough to go with this. Okay, they bring a knight out, attacking my queen. I back up. Yeah, I'm not making the best moves, but I'm making good moves. Okay, another great move over here, bringing the queen up over to h4 and just kind of keeping the queen in the fight, but of course getting it away from attacks. It would not be appropriate for me to move over to a light square because that is defended by their sniper bishop. So I don't have too many choices, actually. And I still want to defend my knight, because if I bring my queen over here to check, their knight might take. Granted, I still may have some pretty good potential there, but I don't want to sacrifice a bunch of pieces during an attack, which is what this is. Okay, bring the pawn into the play. So why do something like this? Well, if they've got 1, 2, 3 attackers on my knight, I need to increase the number of defenders. Right now, I only have 1 defender of that knight. So I decide to bring in a pawn. Now, we can count in a lot of these situations. My opponent still has 3 attackers. I have 2 defenders. So at a glance, it sounds like the opponent is better off, right? However, one of my defenders is a lowly pawn. So often the count of defenders and attackers, or vice versa, will dictate when it's time to start trading or taking and things like that. But if you can defend or attack with a super low value pawn compared to your opponent who's attacking with 3-point bishops and 5-point rooks and 9-point queens, I still feel the advantage. And white's advantage is up over 5 right now. Rook has to go away because it's being attacked. It doesn't have too many squares it could have gone to. It obviously can't move here because pawn is attacking. It doesn't want to move here and block their queen in. They can't move forward. They could have come down here, I suppose, but they can't go there and they can't go there. So they don't have a ton of squares where they could really go to. I'm just kind of glancing over at the best move. F5 is their best move. Bringing their pawn into the mix. I can see that. But notice, black's best moves are all fantastically helpful for white. And in fact, my advantage right now is 5.48. All of black's best moves keep the advantage for white. So it just stems, it mitigates or delays the pain. Now, inaccuracy on my part, I start to bring a rook in. My thought process is, well, let me get more pieces into this, and if they want to trade, fantastic, because they just moved this rook. They had to move it again. Now I'm going to challenge it, and are they going to take and take? Nope. They make the F5 move. Not the best move at the time, but still a good move for black. I bring my knight back, thinking, okay, is it time for me to start trading down? Of course, my knight coming in here is looking at this potential forking square. So this is a forcing move. I'm getting my knight a little bit more active into the center of the board, but I've also got a threat that my opponent needs to respond to because they don't want to lose a rook. So they need to deal with this forcing move. Okay, I don't have the fork, but now I have a pawn that I can take. And okay, this is a pretty passive move. So I moved a pawn onto a dark square thinking, well, I don't want them to start snapping up pawns. I kind of lost track of my mission, right? My mission is to checkmate the king. And I can also move a piece with check. So instead of getting this pawn out of harm's way, make a forcing move. So without even much consideration, I said, wait a minute, why can't I move my rook to e7, which will check their king? Their king can't move down there, can't move down there, can't move there, can't move there, can't take my rook because my knight is defending it. It would just force their king off to the back of the square, to the back of the squares, where who knows what I would do next after that, but I'm still kind of in the driver's seat for attacking. So is that rook e7 the better move? Or do I start to bring this, oh, I've got a knight on the rim of the board too. That's not doing so hot over there. Could I have brought this knight into the attack leading up to my future rook move? Rook e7 check is the best move, and that maintains white's advantage. Rook e6 is the next best move. Yeah, rook e7, I should have seen that, because, yeah, if you can develop a piece, activate a piece, get that piece involved with check, forces your opponent to respond, they do not have time to take that pawn to go pawn grabbing. Okay, I'm offering to trade. Oh, actually, I do see this move coming in. As soon as they made this move, I felt perfect. I've got this down because if king takes the rook back, I'm going to have a great fork opportunity here. So I'm going to be able to win that bishop. And certainly now I'm feeling super confident about the game. I think my opponent understands. And remember, time pressure is not an issue in these long tournament games, at least for the way we're playing. I don't play a lot of tournaments, but I've had one time where we've gotten close to the end of the clock on a long format tournament game. So now I'm just grabbing a few pawns, and I think we are effectively near the end. I can't remember if my opponent resigned or we actually went to some kind of a checkmate. Yeah, I think at this point, yeah, I'm not even really worried about their knight over here. Yeah, I've got a checkmate coming up in the next move. Take. I don't care about that pawn. And yeah, my opponent does have moves to make, so I'm not worried about stalemate. My opponent can make 1, 2, 3 moves with their pawn. So I've got plenty of time. They can't move their king. Their king can't go to any of these squares. So at my next opportunity, I'm going to promote to queen, which would be a checkmate. Okay, so that was a very good game. That was round 3 in this Idaho chess tournament, and against for me, a really good opponent. So yeah, I was feeling super happy with the results in this particular game, and there's still value in going over these old games. So in a separate video, I think I'll explain how I do notation on a sheet, and then I use a little app to scan in that notation into like a PGN file, and I'll show you how all that process works later on. But yeah, so that's round 3 from a chess tournament. Thanks for your time and attention. Take care.